Hey everybody, and welcome back to Mindbody Medicine for Chronic Pain. This is Sean Hershey, and I am so glad that you are with me today. Welcome back. I really hope you enjoyed the interview with Michelle from last week. That was so good. And my advice to you is save that episode. That's an episode about the messy middle. That's an episode about like how it feels when you're in the process and it's just hard and it can feel like a slog. And one thing she says, I forget exactly how she put it now, but she's like, this is deep and long for me. And that's how this process has been for me too. Healing from chronic pain has been deep and long for me. And that's how it is for many people. So my advice to you, if you haven't listened to that episode, first of all, go back and listen to it. And if you have, save it, because you'll need it in the future. Like, my hope for you is that you don't really need it and that your healing goes quick. But honestly, at the same time, my hope for you is that your healing goes exactly how it goes. Because if there's still pain and symptoms there, then there's still more work to do. So there's still just a deeper invitation to go a little deeper. Listen back to that episode because it's such a powerful way to like remind your brain and your nervous system of that. Oh, I also just want to say, just to be like very clear about this, I thought about this, like, I hope no one like, I don't know. Michelle wanted to come on the podcast. Like, Michelle's one of my clients. And she very much wanted to come on the podcast and is a podcast listener. And so I just want to clarify that no one, like, if you have thought, if you're listening to this podcast and you have thought like, oh, maybe I could really use therapy, maybe I should contact Sean. And then you heard that and you were like, does that mean I would be expected to be on the podcast? Like, if that feels very intimidating to you, please know that is not necessary. Michelle very much wanted to be on the podcast. So that's why we did that. So yeah, please just don't let that freak you out. Like, I just want to be super clear if you heard that and felt like intimidated by that. And I also want to share that when I tell clients stories on the podcast, like my client stories, like today, I'm going to tell a story about something that happened between me and a client in this episode later as we go. And that client's identity is completely disguised. Therapists do that to, maintain confidentiality. Like, we share client stories and themes without sharing identifying information. We just share the theme. So just pulling back the curtain for you on how that works so that, like, again, you know that the people who work with me and, the people who work with any therapist, like, their information is protected and it's a confidential space. Therapy is a confidential space. So yeah, just want to make sure that's clear. Okay, so we are back. It is season 2. We're in episode 2, and this is just me and you again today. So we're just going to talk about thinking psychologically and not thinking physically. We're getting back to basics today, which is so important. It is so important to go back to the basics because the brain needs that. As we're getting into this, I just want to say a little bit, going back to the theme of the messy middle, I just want to say a little bit about my messy middle, because I feel like the last few times I've recorded a podcast where I've talked about my own symptoms, I've just been in a good space lately, thankfully. So I've been like, oh yeah, today I feel fine. And like, that's so great, which is great. I'm thrilled about that. My God, like that's the goal, right? Like that's the goal. But I just want to tell you that, like, since I've been saying on the podcast, like, I'm feeling great, I do want to be very real with you. Yesterday, I had really bad hip pain yesterday. Like, my God. And I had been, I've been doing well. I still feel like I have some kind of like control over it. Like, I have to do this work and I have to be in control of this. And a lot of times when I'm feeling really well physically, it feels almost out of my control. Like, I know that it's from doing this work. I know that for sure. And yet the feeling on the days where I'm doing really well is just kind of like, well, I guess it's working because I don't know. I don't think I'm doing anything special today. Like I have been working on going easy on myself. I shouldn't even say working on it. I've been sort of allowing. I've been trying because as much as I get into the idea that like this takes work because it does, but some of the hardest work is just sitting back and allowing. My God, that is hard for me, and I know how your brains are. I know it's hard for a lot of you too. So what I have been trying to do is just like lay down and be kind to myself and be nice to myself and go easy on myself. And that's an important part of the work. Clearly it's working because sometimes I'm like, when I feel good, I'm like, I feel like this is out of my control. My body's just relaxing and it just is what it is. And then on a day like yesterday, I was like, why? My God, why? And it was actually a very busy day where I really had too much stuff going on, and it's getting hot, in New York. It is getting fucking hot, humid, just kind of nasty. I don't like that. Summer is just an overwhelming season, I think, generally for me. And I just had like I bit off more than I could chew for the day, and it was all stuff that I wanted to do, but my body was, oh God, my hip just like really, really hurt. And I mean, I just want to share this with you because I was just like, God damn it. Like, I was doing so well. I've been doing so well. And like, oh, why does this still happen to me? Why? And by the time I was in bed at night, it was hurting less, but it was still there. And I was just like, God damn it. And I'm recording a fucking podcast tomorrow, and I'm going to be like in pain while I'm doing a chronic pain healing podcast. So fucking annoying. And I woke up with like, still some twinges. And that's where I'm still at right now. I mean, thankfully it's calmed down from yesterday. My God, that was bad. But I was really hoping like, oh, maybe in the middle of the day it'll just chill out, or like if I, like maybe when I transition from this activity to that activity, it will just stop. And it didn't. It really didn't until I was finally like in bed at night, where it like chilled out a little, and then I woke up this morning and I'm doing better. Like, but like my hip is much more chill, but it's still it's still activated. Oh, so I just want you to know that like when I say that I'm here with you, yeah, that's what's going on with me. Hopefully that's helpful to know that, so that you feel less alone, and hopefully also maybe that's inspiring if you're at a place where I was at like 2 years ago, where it's like my hip hurts every day. Like this is not just like, oh, some days I'm in this is every day. If you're at that place, then my hope is that my sharing this with you is inspiring, that you know that if you keep walking this path, this is where you will this is where you'll go next. This is the next step. The messy middle. That is the next step. And then the step after that is like you're doing well. So let's all just keep walking. But okay, so here we are in season 2. I want to reorient us. Let me read. I wrote this out again. I have this as a bullet point to share. Coming back to the basics of this podcast, my promise to you is that I will share clear and correct information about healing chronic pain from my personal experience and my professional knowledge, so that you have the education you need to heal, and even more importantly, to provide you with the company of someone else walking this path, so you don't have to do it alone. There we are. That is the whole purpose. So that's what we're here for. If that interests you, listen on, because that's what we're here for. Okay, so before we get deep into the content of today, let me say this. First, if you're interested in weekly individual therapy, I'd be happy to meet you, and I'd be happy to be your therapist. You can request a consultation with me through my website, which is mindbodymedicineforchronicpain.com or seanhershey.com. They both direct to the same place, so both will work. The second thing, if you're enjoying the podcast, please, follow the podcast so that you know when the future episodes come out. Rate the podcast. You can do that in the podcast app where you listen to it, and write a written review. That would be super appreciated. And you can also follow me on Instagram if you would like to join me over there. It's at My Gay Therapist. Okay, so like I said, we're going back to basics today. As you listen, what I encourage you to do is to pay more attention to you than you necessarily pay to me. Like, focus on you. As you listen to me, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? Like, what are you integrating? Like, what do you need? Like, how do my stories impact you? Like, that's the thing. We're here for you. Integration, like integrating this into your life and into your experience and into most importantly, integrating this stuff into your brain and your nervous system. Okay. So as you're listening to this, bring you into the picture. Are you resonating? Are you resonating with my voice? Like the way that I teach about this stuff, the way that I communicate? If so, great. Keep listening. That's what we're here for. Me and you, that's what we're doing. Um, if not, I mean, okay, if you're not resonating with this podcast or you're not resonating with my voice, that's okay. You don't need to engage with me. Like, if it's not for you, listen to that. That's okay. Like, there are so many practitioners who do this stuff. And, like I've said in the past, but this is very important to remember, everyone's saying a slightly different version of the same basic principles. So there's no need for you to fear. Like, if you're not resonating with my voice or my podcast or whatever, just find another resource. They're out there. That's okay. Find another resource. Um, okay, and as we're getting into this, I do want to say a little bit about the idea of like, are you resonating with my voice? Um, because honestly, like I have to say, like I want to share this. I'm feeling good about how this podcast is coming out. I actually like I feel proud of this. Like I'm very proud of season 1. I feel like it came out really well. I'm happy with it. When I've listened back, I'm not like cringing in shame like, "Oh god, I can't post this." I feel like, I feel good about this because I really feel like I'm communicating the information, and I know that it's landing with some people. I mean, I know that because of the feedback I've gotten. I know it's landing with some people, and I hope it continues to land with a lot more people. Um, and I want to say, like, I'm resonating with the podcast myself, and I'm resonating with my own voice, and that's a big deal for me. Like in terms of patiently attuning to your true self, this is something that I want to share from my heart to you. Is that resonating with my voice is a big deal for me because like gay men, most of us really don't like our own voices. Like we have been told like our voices sound feminine or we sound gay and we sound gay and that we're told obviously that that's like a negative thing like like and there look when I was young I used to catch my voice, like if I would catch my voice like on an answering machine or, wherever, in like the 90s and early 2000s, one would like catch their voice, I would be mortified because I sounded so gay. Oh my God, I sounded so gay. And still I have that in me, like about my voice. I'm like, oh, no one wants to hear that. Like, oh God, like gay voice, gay voice. Um, and this, so okay, I went on a first date with a guy a couple weeks ago now, and it didn't end up going anywhere, but we did have a really fun conversation. He was asking me about like he's just like what are you up to in life? And somehow the fact that I had started this podcast came up, and I was like, yeah, that's like something I'm doing professionally. I like started this whole podcast, and this is someone, a gay man who I had never met before. This was the first time we had ever met. And what he said to me was like, how is it listening to your voice? and I knew exactly what he meant. And he like backed up right away because he like doesn't know me. And he was like, oh, I mean, like your voice is awesome. Like you sound, I mean, your voice is great, you know what I mean, right? And I was like, "Oh, yo, dude, like of fucking course I know what you mean. Like it's listening to your own gay voice back to you." And he was like, "See, exactly. My God, like is that hard for you?" And he was talking. I mean, he worked in the arts and he had like a very legit like leadership role in his job, and he was talking about, that as part of like sort of, first date banter. And one of the things he was saying is he was like, sometimes like if I'm on a Zoom call and I'm like giving directions to people and like giving directives to people, and I like catch myself in the corner and I'm like, I look and sound so gay. How is anyone taking me seriously? Like just the internalized homophobia that both that he and I could really sort of bond over. That is hard. Like that shit is hard. And I just want to say that I am really proud of myself that, when he was like, is it hard to listen to your own voice? Honestly, when I listen back to this, I'm like, I'm resonating. I feel good about it. And that's huge. That's big growth for me. So I just want to share that over the years, I have become much more okay with myself and who I am. And I know if I can do it, you can too. Like that is possible. That is possible. Okay, so I just wanted to share that, but okay, thinking psychologically, not physically. That's what we're talking about today. We've already talked about this. I know. And we're going back. We are going back. So why would I talk about something that we've already talked about? I could just as easily say like, okay, I've already done 2 episodes about this in the last season. There's an episode called What is TMS? Listen to that. There's an episode called The Psychological Work. Listen to that. Just same. No, go back and listen to it again. But no, we're going to talk about, I mean, if you want to listen to those again, by all means, please do. There's great info in there. But we are going to actually actively in the present tense again, talk about it again, because this mirrors the process that your brain will be going through as you're healing from chronic pain. Like you'll have to go back to it again and again and again and again. That's how it goes. So that's what we're going to do together, because that is the whole point. We're here to teach your brain how to let go of the pain and the symptoms and the conditions and chill out. So remember, there are 3 parts to the work of healing from chronic pain. First, number 1, the psychological work. Second, number 2, the emotional work. And third, number 3, the work of patiently attuning to your true self. 1, 2, and 3. That's the core of this. That will always be the core of this. And let me just add, if we were going to say that there's a 4th part, as Christina Sarno Horner told us last season, the 4th part would just be sticking with it. Like, don't give up on this stuff. Like, stick with it, because it takes, I mean, sometimes people get really quick cures. That's awesome. But usually it takes time. And even for people who get the really quick cure, then often they'll have another symptom that comes along later, another TMS symptom. And maybe it's a symptom that comes along a month later, maybe a year later, maybe several years later, but new symptoms will come up if you're not really digging in and doing the deeper work. So stick with it. Don't give up on this. So keep that in mind, but we also don't want to like overcomplicate it. So like there are 3 parts. The 4th part is just stay here. Just stick with it. And no, you'll be tempted not to stick with it, but stick with it. That's my advice to you. Stick with it. So today is a deeper dive back into part 1, the psychological work. So the basics there. We want to understand, internalize, and believe the correct information about pain. That's the psychological work. Understand, internalize, and believe the correct information about pain. From there, you can calm the nervous system down and calm the body down. It is safe to be in your body. I know I'm speaking like directly to your like amygdala and hippocampus, and I don't even know all the terms, but I'm talking right to that part of your brain. Listen to this. It is safe to be in your body. You can relax. It is safe to feel physical sensations, including pain and symptoms in your body. It's safe to be in your body. You can relax. Okay, pain is a danger signal. Pain is a danger signal. That is like the basic foundation of all of this. Pain is a danger signal. Pain and symptoms are a sign that that your mind body system is detecting some level of threat. Sometimes that sense of threat is substantiated, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes the sense of threat is based on an outsized sense of fear, or trauma from your past is making the brain feel fear in circumstances that are safe. That's okay. That's the work. But pain is a danger signal, whether the danger is perceived or whether the danger is like a real threat in front of you that is a true threat. Pain and symptoms are danger signals. So the Western medical model would have you believe that the only cause for pain is structural damage or a structural problem or abnormality at the site of the pain. This is one cause of pain. That is one source of threat or danger to the body. Absolutely, that is real. It is just one source, however. And that's most often the case for acute pain. Like chronic pain and chronic symptoms are very likely not about structural damage. So we are widening the lens from that one definition of a source of threat or danger to the body, and we're widening the lens because chronic pain and chronic symptoms are very likely not about structural damage. With chronic conditions, it's much more likely that the problem, like the threat and the danger, it's much more likely that it is psychological, not physical. So here are some examples. Stress, overwhelm, that's a threat. That honestly, I think that was what was going on with me yesterday when my hip was like really fucking hurting, fucking bad, and it was fucking killing me. Like I was so fucking frustrated. I think I was super overwhelmed. And to top it off, I was being really hard on myself. Like, oh, you have to do all this stuff. Like, you've got one day and like a bunch of activities. Go. Don't fuck it up. I was being hard on myself. That's a threat. That's a threat. So, okay, stress, overwhelm, that's a threat. Psychologically, the belief that there's something wrong with your body, that belief is a threat to the mind-body system. Your brain gets scared when you believe there's something wrong with your body. Yeah, that scares the brain. That causes and perpetuates symptoms. Other examples, emotional threats. Those negative or subversive emotions are coming up and you're defended against them because you don't want to feel them. That is a huge cause for chronic pain and chronic symptoms. The negative and subversive emotions rising. Maybe these are emotional realities that don't go with you. I mean, they do because they're in you, but you think they don't go with you. They don't go with your sense of your personality, or they don't go with your sense of how your personality should be, or how you should feel, or how a good person feels, or how a strong person feels. Tough. I say tough with a lot of compassion because I myself have been there, and I want to have compassion for myself, and I want to have compassion for you being in the same place. But tough. If the emotions that are rising for you feel as though they don't go with you, they don't go with your personality, that's too bad. Tough. Those emotions are there anyway. If you push them down, and many times this is happening like below the level of consciousness, you're not even like doing it on purpose, and you're not even necessarily like aware that it's happening. But if you're pushing them down, then yeah, those emotions are read as a danger signal, and that is a trigger for pain and symptoms. So pain and symptoms are created in the mind body system as you fight this internal battle between your natural emotions that just have to rise and your false self that you're trying to maintain. The false self doesn't want to feel those emotions, but it's not real. You do feel those emotions, and the false self is very threatened by the emotions. And so pain signals are generated and the symptoms are generated. And that can happen anywhere in the body. that can happen anywhere in the body. I mean, look at all the TMS mind-body conditions. If you want to see a nice big list, you can look at my website, Mindbody Medicine for Chronic Pain. On the homepage, there's a list of classic manifestations of TMS that comes actually from Howard Schubiner, Dr. Howard Schubiner, who's a leader in the field. And there's a ton of lists online. I mean, you Google it, you'll find a lot of symptoms. This can happen anywhere in the body. And then relatedly, another major cause of TMS or mind body pain is the true self. This is related to what we're just talking about. It can go beyond just pure emotions rising and causing pain and symptoms. Like, when your true desires and urges and needs that feel unacceptable, like all that stuff that's read, like all that stuff as it rises, that can be read as a threat in the mind body system. And if you don't allow yourself to just be yourself, you'll be fighting that internal battle, and there'll be a lot of danger and threat energy in your body. If you resist yourself, if you resist being human, if you resist having a body, then yeah, a lot of you and a lot of being human and a lot of having a body, a lot of that will just feel dangerous and threatening to you. So yeah, you will get symptoms. So I go through that whole list to make it clear that, like, when I'm saying think psychologically, not physically, this is what it looks like to think psychologically, thinking about these things. This is the category of psychological. So yeah, I mean, it's important to understand where your symptoms are coming from. Where are the symptoms coming from? This is where we're thinking, moving out of like, oh, there's something wrong with my hip. Oh, there's something wrong with my gut. There's something wrong with my foot. There's something wrong with my bone. There's something wrong with my joints. There's something wrong. I have an infection that has never gone away. My Lyme's disease has never really cleared out. There's so many things. Don't just listen to me talking. Listen to the voice inside your own head. What are the physical reasons that you are using to attribute your pain and your symptoms to? Question that. Don't wait for me to give your exact example. You know what I mean? That's not coming. I'm not here to save you. I am not going to save you. You, however, can save yourself. What are the physical attributions that you make with your pain and your symptoms in your brain? Question that. Start to think, can I think psychologically rather than think so physically? Okay, so I want to go back to how a TMS or mind body or neural circuit pain diagnosis is made. There's 2 steps to this, and I want to empower you to use this on yourself. The first step is to rule out structural causes. And then the second step is to rule in a mind-body diagnosis using what's called the FIT criteria, F-I-T. We'll get to what exactly what that is. So a reminder, this diagnostic process comes from Dr. Howard Schubiner. I do a deep dive into this in an episode in the last season, which is what is TMS? It's season 1, episode 2. So if you want to hear a deep dive, you can go back to that. But we're gonna honestly we're gonna dive pretty deep again today. So we'll do it here too. This diagnostic process comes from Howard Schubiner, who is truly one of the leading experts on making a mind-body diagnosis worldwide. Truly one of the leading experts. So if you're like, I need a doctor to tell me this, first of all, okay, he exists. He sees patients. Go to him. Like contact his practice, Dr. Howard Schubiner. If you need that to feel safe and to feel okay, yeah, then do that. Also, I am going to tell you, since I did a training with him and he told us all this information, he was like, this is exactly the process I follow. he was very empowering of all of us practitioners who were in this training. He was like, I'm not the only one who knows how to do this. Like, I don't have to do this all alone. Like, you can do it too. It's not rocket science. You can do it too. I mean, he was so generous in passing this along to us. He was so generous. And so I want to pass that generosity along to you, because you can also get in this mindset for yourself. Okay. So, yeah, and I mean the question, like, is my symptom TMS? It's also like, you can call it like a mind-body disorder, or neural circuit pain, or neuroplastic pain, neuroplastic symptoms. They're all synonyms for the same thing. I use the term TMS, like, I just like to use the term TMS, tension myositis syndrome, tension myoneural syndrome, the mind-body syndrome. It can stand for all of the above. I like that. I think it's simple. That's like the original Dr. Sarno term. Some people like other terms, whatever. Awesome. More power to you. It doesn't matter what you call it. Know that it's all the same thing. These are all synonyms for the same thing. But okay, let's get into the diagnostic criteria. First, rule out. So you want to rule out any like serious underlying disease, serious pathology, any serious structural problem that would be causing pain, like a serious injury, cancer. There, not everything is TMS. A lot of things are, okay? A lot of things are, but not everything is. Infections are not TMS. Viruses are not TMS. Breaking your bone and having pain because the bone is broken in the first few weeks, not TMS. Not everything is TMS, but many things are. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is see the proper doctor or specialist to rule out that there's anything else going on. That's step one. Step two is you rule in. By rule out, it's saying like that's like, we're saying this is these other things are not the cause for the pain, so we're ruling them out. Ruling in, we're bringing in the idea of TMS, we're bringing in the idea of of neuroplastic pain, and we're saying, does this make sense? Can we rule that in as a hypothesis, and then eventually as a solid diagnosis for the symptoms that you're experiencing? How do you rule it in? Dr. Schubiner teaches 3 criteria, the FIT criteria: functional, inconsistent, and triggered. 1, 2, and 3, F, I, and T. Okay, so I'm going to go through this to make it clear, and I'm going to do IBS as an example, because that's been my biggest one. So I can speak like I've seen the most doctors and done the most kind of desperate stuff for that one. So I will go through that one. But again, as you're listening to me, think about you. If IBS isn't your diagnosis and you're like, oh, damn it, he's talking about IBS again, but that's not what I have. Wait. Stick with this, because, like I said, I'm not coming to save you. I'm encouraging you to come and rescue yourself. So as you listen to my process of going through this with IBS, think about your symptom. Think about your process. Does this work for you? Okay. So ruling out. I mean, when I had really bad IBS in my 20s, I thought I had all kinds of things. I thought that I had SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I thought that I had a Candida yeast overgrowth. I thought that was like the source of the problem. I thought I had, what were all the things that I thought I had? I mean, yeah, just like the gut dysbiosis, all that like microbiome stuff. That was huge. Fructose malabsorption. I once got a test that said I had fructose malabsorption. So that was a whole thing. I thought I had many different food sensitivities, gluten, dairy, nightshades. I went through the process with all that. What else did I think I had? I mean, I just had so many different All of those are different hypotheses for where the pain and the symptoms were coming from, like the bloating, the gas. Oh, it's because of a food allergy. It's because of all of those were different hypotheses that were not psychological in nature. Those were physical in nature. And I had an endoscopy, I had a colonoscopy, I had, a breath test, I had all this stuff. And, I was diagnosed with like a bunch of stuff. So I share this to say, like, when you're ruling out a structural cause, if you go to doctors, like, they will find shit, they will find stuff. So the rule out process is not always easy, because when I believed that I had, for example, fructose malabsorption, that was an actual diagnosis I got from an actual gastroenterologist. I was like, oh, great. There's the answer. Now I know what the problem is. Now I have a hypothesis. Now I have a diagnosis. And now I know how to treat this, because the treatment protocol is just don't eat fructose. That, first of all, is incredibly hard because that shit is everywhere. But I really did that. I mean, I really ate like basically no fructose for, I don't know how long, but at least a month, maybe two. And it didn't help me. It didn't solve the problem. It really did not. So, okay, that was a hypothesis that turned out to not be accurate. So as you're ruling out, like some underlying physical cause for the pain, or structural cause, or, some kind of cause along the physical axis, as you're ruling that out, like, that's going to be a hard process. So my heart goes out to you in that process, because, like, yeah, ruling this stuff out is hard because there's so much confusion. I mean, human consciousness is limited. Remember, there was a time where surgeons did not know to wash their hands before performing a surgery. Okay? Medicine is limited. Don't think that just because a doctor says something that they're 100% for sure right. Because if you were seeing a doctor in 18 whatever, they would be performing surgery on you without washing their hands, and that would not be right. That era was a long time ago, but we are currently in an era where there is an equal amount of confusion around chronic pain and chronic symptoms. Oh, and that's hard to swallow, because I know you just want to trust someone and you want someone to save you. And yeah, no one's coming to do that. All right. So, okay, ruling out. You want to rule stuff out, and different things like you'll be told, like, oh, the pain, your back pain is coming from a slipped disc. Slipped discs don't have to cause chronic pain. You'll be told for me, for my hip pain, I was told, like, oh, it's the SI joint. It's the SI joint. There's something wrong with your SI joint. So you'll be told all kinds of things like that. If it's a normal abnormality, then that could be TMS. But what you're really ruling out is, like, do you have cancer? Do you have, do you have an infection? Do you have, did you sustain an injury? What you're ruling out, stuff like that. And you do want to do that, because we don't want to miss something, because, like I said, not everything is TMS, even though a lot of things are. Okay, so ruling out, that is not necessarily easy, especially in my example with IBS, but this is the process. For me, this process took years, literal years. I mean, you could maybe even fairly say decades. Like, this is, oh God, sad to think about that, but that's how this goes, and we got to be real about that. Okay, so part one is ruling out. As I'm saying this, I want you to think about you. What is your process of ruling out? What are your hypotheses? I think my pain is coming from this. I think my pain is coming from that. Okay, so that's the psychological work for you to do. What can you rule out there? What do you know? What are these hypotheses really working for you? Is the treatment protocol that's coming from this hypothesis actually solving the problem? If not, okay, time to move on to a different hypothesis. We can rule that shit out. Like, that's over. We're moving on to something else. Okay, and the next step is rule in. We're ruling in is, does this fit, quote unquote, literally fit criteria? Does this fit with a TMS or mind body diagnosis? Okay, so F, I, and T. First, F, functional. A functional disorder, here, I literally Googled this earlier and saved the page so that I could read it. All right, I'm going to read this straight out to you. A functional disorder is a medical condition where symptoms are present, but there's no identifiable structural or disease-related cause in the body's tissues or organs. That's a functional disorder. If somebody tells you that what you have is a functional disorder, like I was told I had a functional bowel disorder at one point, awesome. I mean, some doctors and some conditions you're not going to hear that because that's just not how they're conceptualized in like mainstream Western medicine. But if someone tells you this, great. Then you're like, all right, that's a clue that what we're dealing with is TMS or a mind body disorder. So that's functional. That's the F in the fit criteria. Moving on to the second thing, I, inconsistent. Structurally caused pain doesn't wax and wane the way that TMS or mind body conditions do. Pain that's caused by like a structural issue or injury in the body will be relatively consistent. Like this would be like, say you have like your ankle is messed up, like every time that you step on that ankle, it's gonna hurt you in relatively the same way. I didn't know that until I did this training with Howard Schubiner. I really didn't know that. Like, um, yeah, that was new information to me because I thought, all symptoms wax and wane. All my symptoms would kind of wax and wane, even though they were always there. Like, some days were way worse than others. Some times were way worse than others. After some meals, I'd feel awful. And after other meals, I'd be like, well, okay, at least I tolerated that okay, but I still don't feel good. But I didn't know that like all that waxing and waning was not um typical of like having something structurally or physically wrong with your body. That's typical of having TMS or having a neuroplastic condition. So a good thing for you to know. If you have TMS, it will likely be the symptoms will likely be inconsistent. But I do want to make this very important point as we're talking about inconsistency. FIT, the fit criteria, you don't have to have all three. Not all of these have to be there. These are all clues to rule in TMS. These are the three strongest clues to rule in TMS, but you don't have to have 1, 2, and 3. And a lot of people don't have inconsistency in their symptoms. Like people who have TMS, their symptoms will be pretty consistent. Like that happens. And I'll say, like with my hip, yeah, when my hip pain, especially when it was really bad, I mean, it's there every day. Even now, like I have some level of either low grade and then sometimes high grade hip pain every day. Like inconsistent, yes, I now big time have that with my hip because sometimes it's really very, very chill. Sometimes it's fine. It's just I have a little fleeting pain here and there throughout a day, and it's just little twinges, and that's it. So that's like very clear inconsistency. Sometimes your symptoms will be pretty consistent, and my hip pain was, and it was TMS. So I just want to say inconsistency is definitely a clue that it's TMS. But if you have consistent symptoms, that's okay too. That does not rule out TMS. So just please know that. Okay. And then the final thing. So fit, functional, inconsistent, and triggered. The final piece is triggered. And this is a hard one, folks. This is a hard one. The way that Dr. Schubiner described this is that when you're making this assessment, you're asking, is it triggered by innocuous stimuli? I'm going to say that again. Triggered by innocuous stimuli. Because I know you and your brain is kind of similar to mine because we're both TMS chronic pain people. I know that you don't believe that the triggers are innocuous stimuli. So to hear this, to see the word innocuous or the words innocuous stimuli and to hear the words innocuous stimuli, you're like, no. My triggers cause pain. My triggers cause symptoms. But here's my suggestion, and I could even say my plea to you: question your triggers. This is where it becomes very important to challenge yourself. Okay. Question your triggers. Think psychologically, not physically. Are the reasons you attribute to the symptoms, like, is that really the correct attribution? Or are you thinking too physically when you need to be thinking more psychologically about your triggers. Because let me tell you, you're probably thinking too physically when you need to be thinking psychologically. That I really believe that about you. I don't know you, I haven't met you, but if you're listening to this podcast and you've made it this far, I think this is probably true about you. You're thinking too physically when you need to be thinking psychologically. This is true about me too. Just yesterday when my hip was really hurting, I was like trying to massage it and I was like, what did I do to it? Like, my God. Or like as I was walking, I'm like, if I just like step a certain way, maybe I'll stretch it out or I'll be able to crack it back into place because it must be out of place. Like, the underlying belief there's like something's wrong with this hip that I can just fix structurally. But no, we're all thinking too physically about our triggers, and we need to be thinking more psychologically. That goes for you, that goes for me. Like that's how this is. So, okay, I want to say this to really like illustrate this for you so it lands in your brain and you get what I mean, and it lands in your nervous system too. So, I have a client who's relatively new to me, and he has IBS. And he was telling me in a session, he was telling me about his most recent symptom crash, quote unquote, as he described it. And let me just say, this wasn't the symptom crash, quote unquote, where it was just like, I had a bad day. This was the start of a bad 6 months that was like very difficult to come out of. So, that kind of symptom crash with chronic IBS. So even the idea of coming out of it is just like, well, I'm better than I was when this first happened, but I still have the IBS. So he had been, this client had been on a bunch of different diets to eliminate the symptoms. The diets had not worked great, obviously, but they made a little bit of a difference, which is typical because making these changes like will have a placebo effect of some sort. But so this client had been eating like very plain food, like like food which like I said, it hadn't helped him, but it helped a little, so he stuck with it. And then he got this symptom crash. And let me just explain what he attributed the symptom crash to, because you're going to relate to this. Okay, so this client is Indian, and he went out to a huge Indian dinner with his family who he hadn't seen in a long time. And, he'd been eating like a very plain diet. And he said to me, all of these symptoms came on because of eating so much spice. And he was like, I knew I shouldn't have eaten all of that, but I just wanted to. No, this is a relatively like new client to this to the mind body process. Also note, he was with his family of origin, who he hadn't seen in a long time and who he has a strained relationship with. So I'm not even going to say it because I know the wheels in your head are turning, and I want you to be thinking psychologically and not physically. Let the wheels in your head turn because you already know. And this client was new to me. And coming from a previous therapist who honestly seemed like a great therapist, but his previous therapist didn't know TMS. So after, and he had of course talked about this symptom crash with his previous therapist, and after they had discussed this symptom crash together, this client, what the client said to me, he was like, my old therapist said, why did you do that? Like, you can't do that with your condition. And then the therapist asked, on some level, do you think you wanted to trigger your symptoms? And the client was like, I felt so judged in that moment. And I felt so boxed in. Like, I can't do anything. I can't even eat like spicy foods like ever again. Like, so boxed in. So the previous therapist was doing some like deep psychoanalyzing, which, I'm a therapist too. And yeah, like there is a place for deep psychoanalyzing. Like I will never fight that. I am fully on board with some deep psychoanalyzing. But this was not the place. This was a place to listen to the body, and not to listen by thinking about the body's signals and symptoms physically, but thinking about the body's signals and symptoms psychologically. And as we got to the end of this conversation, me and this client, he this was so heartbreaking. What he said to me, he was like, "I'm really glad you didn't judge me for eating the spicy foods." And it was just like internally, I was like, "Oh my God, this is so heartbreaking." Because what I'm really thinking is like, I'm thinking psychologically and not physically. So of course I'm thinking like, all right, this is the work. Like, how can I get him to start thinking the same? So he and I had a whole conversation about that, which was very, very fruitful. Because what I was really thinking is like, if you want to eat spicy foods, then let's make that a goal for us. That's not like a crazy thing to want to do. The body can withstand food. The body can withstand food. People eat spice. You can do that. Let's make that a goal for us. And he like grew up eating spicy food all the time. So like he can handle it. Um so that's what I was really thinking. I'm really thinking psychologically and not physically. Like, what I was thinking is like, it wasn't really the food that triggered him. It was either the fear of the food, because that can be a trigger, or it was the emotions rising while he was around his family. Or it was the sense of his true self rising, which maybe isn't allowed around his family, or the feelings he has about his family and that are coming from his true self. Those feelings are not in line with the false self that he believes he has to maintain around his family. So it's like, whoa, there we go with the deep psychoanalyzing. Like, that's the direction that I want you to be thinking about, because that's the direction that a TMS patient needs to move in. That's the deep psychoanalyzing we need to do. This is the work. This is the work. That's the emotional stuff. I mean, like, you just listen to the story and it's like, oh my God, look at that. Look at that. Like, you think the trigger is one thing, and then when you really look at it, it's like, whoa, wait. Oh my God, look at that. You know what I mean? Do this for yourself. Give yourself this gift. Like, think this way for yourself. And if you want or need a therapist to help point you in that direction, find a TMS therapist. That's an awesome thing to do for yourself. I share this story because I want this for you. Like, I want you to know how to do the work and be bold enough to go there. Because the next question is going to be, for, as this client and I get deeper into the work, the next question is going to be like, yeah, can we go there? Can you lift up the defenses and peek behind the curtain, and can we go there into the emotions that you really have about your family and your true self? Can we go there? Okay, so this applies to all chronic symptoms. The fit criteria, ruling out and ruling in using the fit criteria, making a TMS diagnosis based on that two-step process, rule out and then rule in using the fit criteria. This applies to all chronic symptoms and chronic conditions and chronic pains. Dr. Howard Schubiner uses this for all the different conditions that he works with. And some of which, the triggers are really hard to question. Really hard to question. And, you want to proceed with lots of compassion for yourself, but you still want to proceed. Question your triggers. Okay, before we're done, I do just want to say this about the triggers are just sometimes really hard to question. Like, okay, I want to say this about pelvic pain before we're done and we wrap up. So a theory that's out there is the theory of an embedded infection. That's the trigger for pelvic pain, or that's the source of pelvic pain. Like, you'll read that a lot online, and that will cause a lot of fear, because an embedded infection doesn't show up on a diagnostic test. And a typical infection like strep throat or something like that, that's not TMS, So the idea of an embedded infection, that looks so hard to say. The idea of an embedded infection, it feels scary. Because, first of all, an infection is scary, and an infection isn't TMS. the diagnostic test, it won't show up because it's embedded. So how do you know it's not there? Like, you feel that fear, like, how do you know it's not there? And furthermore, how will you ever know that it's gone? Because there's no way to test for it. Because even when you test negative, yeah, of course the test is negative. It's been negative the whole time, and you thought you had the embedded infection. So, like, the test being negative, it doesn't mean shit. This is often the same for chronic Lyme. Like, the testing for chronic Lyme is very, it's very this, very this. Your mainstream doctor likely won't tell you about the embedded infection theory, won't tell you about chronic Lyme. So you have to do all that treatment kind of off the grid, so to speak. But you'll also need to, like, convince doctors to prescribe you antibiotics and medications. So that'll be a huge challenge. Like, I want to get into, like, all of that complexity there, because, like, it takes a leap of faith to get out of that mindset and try this on. It's the same with the Lyme testing, because the tests are the tests. It'll be like, oh, but I tested negative, but then I got a very sensitive, always very expensive, a very sensitive test, and yeah, that picked something up. These, like, deep cut strands of Lyme in the body, and maybe they aren't even there. Maybe the test is a false positive, and who knows? I mean, who knows what's floating around in your body? I don't know. So it takes a leap of faith to put those attributions and those ideas of triggers aside and to try this on instead. It takes a leap of faith. But also, I want to quote Dr. Dan Ratner, who was on he was on the podcast last season. Great interview. If you want to hear that one, go back and listen to it. Highly recommend. The idea of a leap of faith, you can also think of it, Dan Ratner says, as a leap of logic. Right? Because if you follow TMS logic, it makes sense. I mean, what if you tried this? What if this has worked for other people? It's worked for people with pelvic pain. It's worked for people with chronic Lyme. It's worked for people with IBS. We can't get into everything. It's worked for people who thought they had embedded infections. This process of back pain, all the musculoskeletal stuff, I'm not going down the rabbit hole. It works for a lot of conditions. Because if you have TMS, then this is the work that works for you. That's how it goes. It's not easy work. It's not like 24 hours and it's done. But if you have TMS, this mind-body healing process, this is what will work for you. Like, that's how it goes. Oh, okay. If you want to believe that there's something physically wrong with your body, you will be able to find someone to tell you that. You just will. That's how the medical system works. You can find it. My advice is, you want to rule out underlying conditions. Of course you do. You want to rule out things that are not TMS. Of course you want that. But you don't want to get stuck believing there's something physically wrong with your body when the real issue is psychological. Don't lean into that. Like, just don't lean into that. Okay, there we go. So in review, think psychologically, not physically. Stick with that mindset. You know what that means. Stick with that mindset. Be empowered to make a diagnosis with your own self. Rule out, rule in, using the FIT criteria: functional, inconsistent, and triggered. You can do this for yourself. This is the way forward. Oh, okay. So I'm sure that like helps. I need this stuff. Literally, I need reminders of this stuff all the time, even though literally I'm like, I have it in my brain. I can, like, teach about it. I can talk about it. I can work with my clients on it. I do it for myself, and I still need reminders of this myself all the time. So I know you do too. And here's a nice episode, a nice podcast episode that's a big reminder. Think psychologically, not physically. Okay. So if you're interested in weekly individual therapy, I would love to meet you. I'd be happy to be your therapist. You can request a consultation with me through my website. Like I said, that's mindbodymedicineforchronicpain.com or seanhershey.com. They will both take you there. If you're enjoying the podcast, please, follow the podcast so you'll know when the future episodes come out. Rate the podcast in your podcast app and write a written review. That would be so helpful to elevate this stuff and to get the to get the word out there for more people. It helps more people find this stuff, and more people need to find this stuff, right? My God, oh God, that's important. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do so at mygaytherapist. Okay, I believe in you. You're doing awesome. You're learning how to think psychologically and not physically. And even when you slip, just like I do, back into thinking physically, you're bringing yourself back. You're doing great. Your healing is going awesome. I love your process. And it's been great talking together today. And I will plan to see you again next week with an interview. I've got a very cool interview lined up. We talk about queerness and TMS. It's a very cool interview. So can't wait to talk again next week. All right. See you then.